Chapter 116, Lousy Team Members. Li Jian and the other heads of the buildings stared at each other, none of them knowing what Zhang Yi was up to. Farming? Becoming farmers? Was he joking? Huang Tianfang said discontentedly, "Have you ever farmed? In such cold weather, all the crops will freeze to death." Zhang Yi said, "Hey, don't say that. Back in Siberia, they were promoting corn, and it worked. If you don't think corn will work, I have other seeds, like potatoes and wheat. There's bound to be something suitable." Li Jian and the others were completely speechless. "Zhang Yi, don't joke around. How cold is it outside? Besides, it's freezing, where are you going to plant anything?" Zhang Yi replied seriously, "So what if it's cold? We're still alive, aren't we? We don't know how long this snowstorm will last. As you may have noticed, all the high-ranking officials have gone into hiding and are preparing for a long stay. This means that the end of the world will continue for quite some time. If we don't grow crops, we'll soon run out of food. Then we'll all die, won't we? As for where to plant, that's easy to solve." Zhang Yi pointed outside the window. "Isn't it all land out there? As long as we clear away the snow, there's land underneath. To overcome the low temperatures, we can plant crops underground. Although the process will be difficult, we must try. Only in this way can we maintain a complete ecological chain and allow everyone to survive in the apocalypse." Among the five, Huang Tianfang and Li Jian looked somewhat moved. Huang Tianfang had been a farmer and was very skilled at farming. If they had to solve the food problem through farming in the future, he would undoubtedly have an advantage over the city dwellers in the community. Li Jian, on the other hand, considered that there were many people in their building, and they were all important laborers. If they developed an agricultural model, his say in the community would also increase. Wang Chang looked at Zhang Yi with suspicion. He couldn't possibly farm. But as the leader of Building 21, he could naturally let others do the work. Li Jian suddenly asked, "If we want to start farming, we must provide enough food. In that case, 300 food rations are not enough." Zhang Yi's mouth curved into a slight smile as he said, "But I need more than 300 people." He spread his hands and said, "Okay, now it's time to talk about my second condition. That is, every building needs to send someone out to organize the farmland. I need to see your work progress every day. After all, I'm not working hard to find food to feed lazy people." Zhang Yi looked at everyone, tapping his fingers lightly on the table, while the others were tapping their calculators in their minds. "These are my two conditions. As long as you agree, I will agree to provide you with supplies. And with 300 people, the quality of the food will be guaranteed. In the future, I will even provide cigarettes, alcohol, clothing, and even medical supplies." As soon as he said this, some people couldn't sit still. Wang Chang stood up with a bang and asked loudly, "You can get cigarettes?" His eyes were filled with anticipation. Huang Tianfang was also excited, his lips trembling. "Do you have any cigarettes? Quick, give me one to try. I haven't smoked for half a month, I'm going crazy." These two men were both heavy smokers, and not allowing them to smoke for more than half a month was worse than killing them. The reason why they became so violent was also related to withdrawal symptoms. Zhang Yi smiled slightly, took a pack of Lacoon cigarettes out of his pocket, and threw one to each of them. The two men greedily stared at the cigarettes in their hands and hurriedly put them in their mouths. "Fire. Do you have a lighter? Here, come on, light it up." Wang Chang and Huang Tianfang didn't even care what they had come here for at that moment. They ran to one side and lit the cigarettes with trembling hands. Then they put them in their mouths and took a deep drag. White smoke poured out of their nostrils, and both of their faces showed expressions of ecstasy. They could go without food, but not smoking would really drive them crazy. The smile on Zhang Yi's face grew even wider. "Now I've laid out my conditions. Do you accept?" Chen Lingyu's legs were tightly clamped together at this moment, her mind focused on her urine-soaked pants. She was shivering from the cold but didn't dare to show it. Zhang Yunian was a muscular man with a simple mind, and he was completely confused by Zhang Yi's conditions. He didn't know how to respond. Only Li Jian intended to argue his case and negotiate some more conditions. But before he could say a word, he was interrupted by Wang Chang. As long as you can guarantee that I'll have cigarettes to smoke in the future, I can agree to all your conditions. But we have to agree that you have to give me at least 2 packs a day. Huang Tianfang also said, I want the same conditions. Zhang Yi said, I can only give you 1 pack a day at most. I can't find any more than that. Wang Chang and Huang Tianfang quickly agreed. Okay, it's settled, 1 pack a day. You have to bring it to us. Zhang Yi smiled and spread his hands. So, we've reached an agreement today, right? Li Chang and Huang Tianfang weren't very smart. Moreover, cigarettes were highly addictive and could easily destroy a person's willpower. As long as they could get cigarettes, they didn't care about anything else. The two of them had no objections to the benefits Zhang Yi had given them. However, Li Jian said, we still need to discuss this matter. Chen Lingyu clenched her legs tightly and said with difficulty, yes, we still need to think about it carefully. Zhang Yi waved his hand and said, do as you wish. Anyway, I've laid out my conditions, and this is my utmost sincerity and bottom line. If you still don't agree, then we'll have to settle this with our swords and guns. Zhang Yi emphasized the words swords and guns. This was to remind the people in front of him that fighting Zhang Yi would be like fighting with swords, spears, and guns. Wang Chang reached out to Zhang Yi and said, I don't have any problems. Give me some cigarettes first. Zhang Yi sneered, are you kidding? Aren't you all on the same side? Until you give me a clear answer, these conditions are not officially in effect. So if you want cigarettes, you'll have to wait until you've made up your minds. Wang Chang took a big drag on his cigarette, his eyes a little hazy. He said impatiently to Li Jian and the others, what are you waiting for? We've got everything we want, haven't we? Just do as he says. Li Jian said, but this is 2. Wang Chang glared at him and said, what do you mean, this is 2? I said, let's do it. Don't waste time. I hate people who are so indecisive. Huang Tianfang exhaled a smoke ring and said, I think that's enough. Zhang Yi is giving us face, so we should be considerate of his situation, right? Li Jian's face was as calm as water, but inside he was cursing Wang Chang and Huang Tianfang. These 2 useless team members were actually fighting among themselves in front of the other party. Chapter 117, The Deterrent Power of the Sniper. Wang Chang and Huang Tianfang were addicted to smoking and wanted to agree to Zhang Yi's conditions immediately, just so they could get a pack of cigarettes every day. Chen Lingyu, who had just wet her pants, was focused on the space between her legs and couldn't spare any mental energy. Li Jian had no choice but to grit his teeth and say, this condition is indeed a bit harsh, and we can't make a decision on our own. Otherwise, the other buildings won't agree. Zhang Yunian had his arms crossed the whole time. He wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. In his mind, as long as Zhang Yi could provide food, it didn't matter how much, because as the leader of Building 5, he would never go hungry. But since everyone else had spoken, he followed suit and said, yes, this is not something that can be decided lightly. I think we need to discuss it further. Zhang Yi's expression suddenly changed, and his voice became cold. Discuss it further? Are you kidding me? If the 5 of you can't make a decision for the entire neighborhood, why did you claim to be representatives and come to negotiate with me? Uncle Yu and the others outside the door clenched their weapons and approached the door with cold and serious expressions. Wang Chang and the others felt a chill run down their spines. Now it would be too easy for Zhang Yi to kill them. After all, he had guns in his hands. They didn't have anything. Wang Chang hurriedly reached out to stop Zhang Yi. Don't worry, who said we can't make the decision? He glared fiercely at Li Jian and Zhang Yunian and said, didn't we agree on this? The 5 of us would make the decision. How dare the people from the other buildings not listen? In my opinion, Zhang Yi's conditions are acceptable. How much real-world experience did Wang Chang, who was in his early 20s, have? He committed a serious mistake in negotiation by revealing his hand first and rushing to express his position. But there was no other way. He was the head of a building, but he was just a street thug who liked to show off and fight. Li Jian and Chen Lingyu saw Wang Chang's behavior and wanted to beat him to death. But the words were already out, and there was no way to take them back. Not only Wang Chang, but Huang Tianfang also stood up to help him. After all, he had the fewest followers. 10 people's worth of supplies was more than enough for them, and they could smoke cigarettes every day. Wouldn't their life be like that of gods? Huang Desheng said, I think everyone should try to understand each other. Zhang Yi also has his difficulties. Let's just leave it at that, everyone. Don't push him too hard. In order to win Zhang Yi's favor, Huang Tianfang patted his chest and said to Zhang Yi, let me make my position clear first. I agree with your proposal. Wang Chang quickly followed suit, me too. Zhang Yunian still frowned, pretending to be thoughtful, but as this was his first time experiencing such a situation, he didn't know what to say. In short, he decided to just act all serious and get it over with. Of the 5, only Li Jian and Chen Lingyu were somewhat smart. However, due to special circumstances, Chen Lingyu's IQ had plummeted, leaving Li Jian alone to carry the burden. The group was in chaos, and internal conflicts arose. Zhang Yi sat by the window, watching them with interest, while keeping an eye on the reactions downstairs. Suddenly, his brow furrowed slightly as he realized something was wrong. The group of people who had just been scared away by his grenade suddenly began to gather in groups and quietly approached Building 25. The corners of Zhang Yi's mouth curled up slightly. These people took advantage of the negotiations to suddenly launch an attack, which was within Zhang Yi's expectations. After all, Zhang Yi was the strongest fighter in the entire Building 25. It could even be said that more than 99% of the fighting power came from the weapons in Zhang Yi's hands. Now that Zhang Yi was being held up by negotiations upstairs, the others would take the opportunity to launch a surprise attack and take Building 25 in one fell swoop. This was a very classic strategy. Unfortunately, Zhang Yi was not stupid. With more than 1,000 people outside the building, how could he not be on his guard? Looking at the people who were itching to attack, Zhang Yi said to the 5 building leaders in front of him, "Did you arrange for people to come and launch a surprise attack while we were negotiating?" When Wang Chang and the others heard this, their faces were filled with confusion. Wang Chang laughed dismissively, "What are you talking about? We're all here, and you want us to send people to launch a surprise attack? Wouldn't that be playing with our lives?" Zhang Yi smiled faintly, "I think so too. But in that case, you'll have to investigate thoroughly when you get back." It was highly unlikely that these people were arranged in advance by the 5 people in front of him. After all, they knew that Zhang Yi had a gun and could easily kill them all. So there were only 2 explanations. Either the other building leaders chose to abandon them and use them as bait to divert Zhang Yi's attention, then launch a surprise attack on Building 25. Or their own subordinates wanted to seize power and launched an attack regardless of their lives. Li Jian understood immediately. His face turned pale, and he stood up suddenly. "They've started attacking." Wang Chang, Huang Tianfang, Chen Lingyu, and Zhang Yunian changed their expressions upon hearing this. Those damn bastards, who told them to do this? Zhang Yi still had a cold smile on his face. He suddenly reached down and picked up the black sniper rifle from under his feet. "Everyone sit down!" Zhang Yi shouted, then aimed the black muzzle at the 5 people in front of him. Uncle Yu also immediately rushed in with his men and blocked all their escape routes. The 5 people were scared out of their wits when they saw the sniper rifle. "Zhang Yi, it really wasn't us, don't shoot, please don't." Wang Chang was so anxious that sweat was pouring from his forehead. Chen Lingyu couldn't hold herself together anymore and collapsed onto the floor, her pants even wetter than before. Zhang Yi ignored them, turned around, and rested the sniper rifle on the windowsill. The people downstairs had already begun to gather at the temporary front door of Building 25, and it was only a matter of time before they launched their attack. Zhang Yi aimed at a tall figure in the crowd and pulled the trigger. Bang! The roar echoed through the residential area, and the building leader of Building 11 was instantly blown to pieces, red and white splattered across the snow. The people below who had been planning to launch a surprise attack were also stunned into standing still. Bang! The second shot rang out, and another head was pierced. At this moment, the stunned crowd finally reacted and hurriedly fled for their lives or crawled directly into the snow. Zhang Yi's cold eyes were like the Grim Reaper as he continued to mercilessly harvest lives. Out of a sense of mockery, he didn't target those desperately trying to run back this time, but instead aimed at those lying on the ground. Lying on the ground? Do you think you're so smart? Well, I'll kill you all. The sound of the rifle echoed throughout the neighborhood, and the people lying on the ground twitched, then their heads exploded. In the negotiation room, the 5 building leaders were also deeply shocked by this scene. Only after seeing Zhang Yi shoot and kill people with his own eyes did they realize how terrifying this man really was. Chapter 118, Zhang Yi's kindness cannot be repaid in a lifetime. Zhang Yi killed more than a dozen people in one breath. By the way, have you ever played the game of smashing tadpoles? In spring, there are many tadpoles in the creek, swimming in groups in the creek water. If you throw a stone into the water, the tadpoles scatter with a splash, which is very interesting. When Zhang Yi killed people, it felt similar to smashing tadpoles. When he saw a crowd of people, he would pick out the most noticeable ones and kill them, then the others would be scared out of their wits and flee for their lives. The residents who were still alive watched as the people next to them died. Their bodies were covered with the blood and brain matter of others, which was undoubtedly a huge deterrent. It made them lose the courage to fight back in a short period of time. Zhang Yi saw that they were scared out of their wits, so he slowly put away his sniper rifle. Then he turned around and faced the 5 stunned people again. He said lightly, "Have you thought it through?" Even Wang Chang and Huang Tianfang, who were usually the most vicious and ruthless, felt their legs trembling at that moment. That was the awe humans felt towards firearms. Wang Chang gulped down a mouthful of saliva with difficulty, then raised his hand and said, "I agree to the 2 conditions you proposed." Huang Tianfang also said, "I have no objections." Next were Zhang Yunian and Chen Lingyu. They didn't say anything, probably because they didn't know how to speak, so they just raised their hands to indicate their agreement. Li Jian saw that the other 4 had already compromised and bitterly raised his right hand. "I agree too." The corners of Zhang Yi's mouth curved slightly. "Good, then you can start working today. I'll let you know tomorrow afternoon when you can come and collect your supplies. Also, make sure you work hard. I'll be watching you, don't try to trick me." The others nodded in agreement. Zhang Yi waved at them. "You can go now." Li Jian hung his head in defeat and was the first to leave the negotiation room, followed by Zhang Yunian. Chen Lingyu walked with a strange gait, her legs tightly pressed together, as if she was afraid something would spill out. Wang Chang and Huang Tianfang lingered, not in a hurry to leave. Zhang Yi, can you give me that pack of cigarettes? After all, we're companions now." Wang Chang pointed at the cigarettes in Zhang Yi's hand, his eyes filled with desire. Huang Tianfang was anxious, afraid that Wang Chang would take them all for himself. "Wang Chang, don't you dare take them all." He turned his head and smiled ingratiatingly at Zhang Yi. "Zhang Yi, I haven't had a cigarette in a long time, can you give it to me?" Zhang Yi glanced at them, picked up the half-pack of cigarettes and threw it on the ground. "You guys can fight over it yourselves." The 2 men pounced on the ground like vicious dogs. 2 grown men were fighting on the ground for half a pack of Lacune cigarettes, completely disregarding their image. "Wang Chang, you little bastard, how dare you fight with me? Old man Huang, don't look for death, let go of me. Give it here." In the end, the cigarette pack was torn to pieces by the 2 of them. They each grabbed a few cigarettes and left the negotiation room with angry looks on their faces. The crisis in Building 25 was temporarily resolved. Zhang Yi put away his sniper rifle, sat down on a chair, and looked extremely calm. Today's outcome was clearly not ideal. He had originally hoped to kill all the leaders of the other 29 buildings in one fell swoop today. However, that was only in an ideal situation. The current situation wasn't bad either. On the surface, he would cooperate with them, then let them fight amongst themselves, and finally find the right opportunity to strike. Zhang Yi was not in a hurry. With sufficient supplies and a superior living environment, he would always have the upper hand. After the 5 building managers left, everyone in Building 25 breathed a sigh of relief and hurried over to ask Zhang Yi about the outcome of the meeting. Zhang Yi told them, under the threat of my military force, they agreed to compromise. In the future, we will need to provide them with food for 300 people in exchange for peace. Furthermore, everyone must participate in the labor. In the future, we will develop the land, engage in agriculture, and adhere to sustainable farming practices. The neighbors listened with their mouths agape. Food for 300 people? Is that even possible? And if we give them all our food, what will we do? No one understood why Zhang Yi had made such demands. After all, he hadn't even consulted them when he made his decision. Zhang Yi explained calmly, if we don't reach an agreement, what are you going to do? Do you really want to fight against thousands of people in the entire community? He laughed coldly and said, I don't care. I'm not afraid of them no matter how many there are, but can you guys hold them off? The neighbors looked at each other and didn't dare to say anything. Zhang Yi alone accounted for 99% of the fighting power of the entire Building 25. Zhang Yi had powerful firepower and an almost impenetrable fortress. If he left, he could still live a good life regardless of what they did. But what about them? Wouldn't they be killed by the angry community owners and turned into kebabs? Zhang Yi said lightly, don't worry too much, I'll try my best to find food. No matter what, I won't let you starve to death. The neighbors raised their heads, their eyes shining with emotion and disbelief, tears glistening in their eyes. Zhang Yi, you. A woman choked up, you really are. You're making me cry. Zhang Yi, you're taking the pressure of the entire Building 25 hashtag on your shoulders. I'm truly grateful. Zhang Yi, we were right about you. You are a leader worthy of our respect. The neighbors were teary-eyed and deeply moved. The pressure of finding food was all on Zhang Yi's shoulders. Zhang Yi sighed softly, his tone becoming a little gentler. He slowly scanned the crowd, his tone solemn and deep. Everyone, don't cry. I know you had some opinions about me in the past and thought I was a bad person. But no matter how you see me, I sincerely hope that everyone can live a good life. Not just me, Zhang Yi, but every single one of you. Jiang Lei wiped away his tears and said loudly, Brother Zhang. Don't worry, we will never forget your kindness. We will never let you down. The other neighbors nodded in agreement and whispered among themselves. Actually, when you think about it, even though Zhang Yi killed 70 or 80 people, they all deserve to die. He didn't attack them first. Zhang Yi was only defending himself, and he was actually very good to us. Maybe we all misunderstood him in the past. He really is a good person. Anyway, from now on, I will fully support Zhang Yi and defend all his decisions. We can never repay Zhang Yi for his kindness. Chapter 119, An Open Plot. Zhang Yi impressed his neighbors, who wiped away their tears and returned to work. Only Uncle Yu remained. He walked up to Zhang Yi and looked at him suspiciously for a long time, as if he had never known him before. Why are you looking at me like that? Do I have a young woman's face? Zhang Yi asked with a smile. Uncle Yu looked a little embarrassed and shook his head. No. I just think you're a little strange today, not like the old you. Zhang Yi knew what Uncle Yu was thinking. He smiled slightly and lowered his eyelids. You don't understand why I made that cooperation agreement with them, do you? Uncle Yu nodded. Indeed, it doesn't seem like your style to give in like that. That meant providing food for 300 people every day. It would be very difficult to transport everything with just Zhang Yi's snowmobile. With so many people, how many supermarkets would they have to dig out of the snow to feed them all? Uncle Yu couldn't understand. In his mind, Zhang Yi wasn't a bad person, but he definitely wasn't weak or easily bullied, and he certainly wasn't some kind of saint who pitted others. Zhang Yi didn't rush to explain, but glanced outside the door and pointed in that direction, saying, Is anyone outside? Uncle Yu immediately went over to take a look and confirm that there was no one around before returning. There's no one there. Zhang Yi nodded. Some things had to be kept secret and couldn't be heard by outsiders. Otherwise, all the hard work he had put into fooling the neighbors with his acting would have been wasted. Zhang Yi said to Uncle Yu, cooperating with them is just a temporary measure. I was originally planning to call all the building leaders over today and kill them all. Then, with no one in charge of each unit, the buildings would fall back into chaos. That way, I would have the opportunity to defeat them one by one. But today, they only sent 5 people. Although they are the 5 most powerful building leaders, killing them won't do any good. After all, the others have already formed an alliance. Then I must endure my desire to kill and show weakness to the enemy first, so that they think I don't dare to go against the people of 29 buildings at the same time, and therefore compromise with them. Uncle Yu's eyes lit up when he heard this. He gave Zhang Yi a thumbs up, so that's how it is. That makes sense. I knew the previous approach wasn't like you. Zhang Yi nodded with satisfaction. Do you understand? Uncle Yu shook his head. I don't understand, but it sounds reasonable. Zhang Yi was a little speechless. He took a deep breath, but inside he was rolling his eyes. Okay, to put it simply, first we'll make them let their guard down. Then we'll wait for them to show a weakness, and then we'll take them down. What's more, I've dug 2 big pits for them. When Zhang Yi said this, a sadistic smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Uncle Yu was hooked and hurriedly said, Tell me more. Zhang Yi glanced at the door and pointed in that direction, saying, Go check if anyone's there. Uncle Yu thought that Zhang Yi had seen someone and hurried over. After searching for a long time, he didn't see anyone. He returned, somewhat confused, and said to Zhang Yi, I didn't see anyone. Zhang Yi said, Oh, I didn't see anyone either. I just wanted to double check. What if someone ran over while we were talking? Uncle Yu was a little speechless. Zhang Yi cleared his throat. Okay, let's continue. The first pitfall I dug for them was the limited amount of supplies. There were only 10 portions for each building. This way, there definitely wouldn't be enough food in the future. As the saying goes, it's better to share than to hoard. When I distribute food, everyone will see it. But after the floor leaders take the food back to their floors, they won't distribute it to everyone. Guess what will happen in each apartment building when that happens? Uncle Yu was smart this time, they will start fighting among themselves. Right. They will start fighting. Zhang Yi nodded. The residents who don't get any food will go from having newly found hope to falling into even deeper despair. That kind of pain is worse than death. Although they didn't have food before, everyone was starving at that time, so at least everyone was equal. Even if some of them die first, the others will still face the inevitable fate of freezing and starving to death. The smile on Zhang Yi's lips grew wider. But once they know that 10 people in each building can get long-term, stable food and survive, do you think their mindset will remain the same? Uncle Yu thought about it for a moment and suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. This kind of manipulation of people's hearts was simply too ruthless. First, you give them hope, then you take it away completely. Everyone should face death fairly, but some people use your sacrifice to gain hope for their own survival. This feeling of being trampled on, discriminated against, and treated differently can drive a person completely insane. Zhang Yi looked out the window. With the departure of the 5 building leaders, the people in the other apartments slowly began to disperse. Soon, cruel fights and killings would break out in every apartment. People who are desperate will forget their fear of death. They will take someone with them when they die. That way, things will get interesting. Zhang Yi said with a smile. Uncle Yu looked at Zhang Yi's calm and composed appearance and felt both admiration and fear in his heart. He was very glad that he was not on the opposite side of Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi, you are too smart and too terrifying. Uncle Yu said with emotion. But Zhang Yi shook his head, his gaze still as calm as the snow outside the window. No, although I have some wisdom, I don't consider myself a genius who can manipulate others with my mind. The reason I've ended up in this situation is simply because I'm more composed than they are. I eat well, dress warmly, and sleep soundly every night. I don't worry about food or the temperature. I have powerful firepower in my hands and the confidence to fight them head-on. I have a strong fortress and am not afraid of their threats. When all these conditions are met, I am not afraid, and my mind is clear. On the contrary, they are hesitant and indecisive, and their IQ is not up to par. At this point, Zhang Yi jokingly said to Uncle Yu, "Even a world-class boxing champion would lose to me in the ring after being hungry for 30 days. Isn't that right?" Uncle Yu was taken aback for a moment. Hungry for 30 days? That's a dead man, isn't it? Zhang Yi said with conviction, "Yes. How can a dead man beat me?" At first, Uncle Yu thought it was just clever reasoning, but after thinking about it carefully, he realized that it was actually a very true statement. Chapter 120, The Strategy of Exhausting the Enemy. Zhang Yi said to Uncle Yu, "I'm not using a secret plot, but an open one. Not all of those people are idiots. There are some smart ones too. For example, Li Jian and Qin Lingyu are the type of people who have 108 twists and turns in their heads. They definitely guessed that my goal was to weaken their forces. But so what? I have already demonstrated my powerful military force and attracted the fools among them with sufficient benefits. And the percentage of fools among the unorganized masses is much higher than that of smart people. Li Jian and Qin Lingyu don't have the power to speak, nor do they have enough strength to convince everyone. Those who only see the immediate benefits and cut off their own arms will always be the majority. It's like Lu Yilong, who destroyed the Great Wall and killed the General Tan Daoji." Zhang Yi couldn't help but sigh. Even the emperors of ancient times did such foolish things, let alone the people in this small community in Tianhai City. Uncle Yu listened in astonishment. His level of education was not enough to understand Zhang Yi's words, so he could only look at Zhang Yi with wise eyes. He scratched his head. "What you said makes so much sense." He could only smile to cover his embarrassment. So he changed the subject and asked, "But why did you make them farm? It's so cold, it's impossible to grow crops, isn't it?" Zhang Yi looked outside the door. This time, Uncle Yu had learned his lesson and took the initiative to check the situation outside before saying, "There's not a soul outside, you can talk freely." Zhang Yi smiled and said, "Some things are actually very simple, don't overthink it. I made them farm simply to intensify their conflicts and exhaust their physical strength." He spread his hands and said, "After all, the only thing they can offer now is their worthless physical strength." Uncle Yu frowned and thought for a long time before finally saying, "Is this a strategy to wear down the enemy?" "That's right." Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. "We didn't kill all of their building leaders today. Next time we fight, there will definitely be more people to kill. I must weaken their fighting power as much as possible." Zhang Yi said, leaning close to Uncle Yu with a serious look in his eyes. "None of these people can be trusted. The conflict between them and us is difficult to resolve, and sooner or later, we will fight again. So we can't let our guard down during this period of time. Also, you must keep what I told you a secret." After this conversation, Uncle Yu was deeply impressed by Zhang Yi's wisdom. He nodded slowly and firmly. "I understand. Zhang Yi, the survival of our family now rests on your shoulders. I will do whatever you tell me to do." Zhang Yi smiled contentedly and nodded, "All right, let's proceed according to plan. Then we'll see how far they can go." Zhang Yi only told Uncle Yu part of the truth. In fact, he had more tricks up his sleeve that he didn't tell him about. Zhang Yi already knew that someone in Building 25 was secretly colluding with people from other buildings. The mole had tried to kill him before, and would definitely try again in the future. For example, there was the time when the Wild Wolf gang ambushed him in the snow. Zhang Yi returned to his residence and glanced at Zhou Keir's room through the surveillance camera. Nowadays, Zhou Keir was under even tighter surveillance by Zhang Yi. After all, with the big battle looming, even if Zhang Yi believed that Zhou Keir wasn't stupid enough to betray him, it was better to be safe than sorry. If he were to lose, he would lose his life. No one would be careless when faced with life and death. Zhang Yi confiscated Zhou Qir's cell phone, and whenever he left the house, he would lock her in her small room and not allow her to come out. However, Zhou Qir was quite good at self-control. She was a smart woman who knew what to do and what not to do. At the very least, she would not challenge Zhang Yi's authority, so whatever Zhang Yi asked her to do, she would do obediently. After all, she was a maid, and Zhang Yi was the master. The master's orders are absolute. At this moment, Zhou Qir was doing yoga in her room. Her upper body was dressed in a pink low-cut spaghetti strap blouse, her full breasts rising and falling with her elegant movements, making one worry that the thin fabric might not be able to support their weight and slip down. Her lower body was covered by a pair of tan yoga pants, showcasing her perfect leg curves. Her elegant split was straight on the floor, her calves stretched tight and her thighs full and fleshy, showing that she exercised regularly. Zhang Yi walked to her door, took out the key and opened the door. Zhou Qir looked up at Zhang Yi, her forehead covered in sweat, a strand of hair sticking to her forehead, giving her an indescribable charm. "You're back." Zhou Qir was very happy to see Zhang Yi. She stood up with a bend of her legs, a sincere smile in her eyes. She knew that Zhang Yi had gone to do something important today, and seeing his relaxed expression, it was clear that the talks had gone well. Zhou Qir walked up to Zhang Yi, hooked her arms around his neck, and asked with sparkling eyes, "How did the negotiations go?" Her figure was so voluptuous that just coming close to him, she naturally pressed against Zhang Yi's chest. That feeling could only be described in one word. One more glance and he would explode. One step closer and he would melt. Zhang Yi didn't feel like he was melting, but instead became even more determined. He hugged Zhou Qir, kissed her fiercely, then held her in his arms and lay down on the bed. "In the next few days, this is what we'll do." Zhang Yi told Zhou Qir about the negotiations. This might not mean anything, but when men are doing something important, they want to find a woman to confide in. It might be a bit chaotic these days, so just stay at home like usual and don't go anywhere. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes, and his tone became cold. In a little while, all the problems will be completely solved. Zhou Qir leaned against Zhang Yi's chest, not quite understanding because Zhang Yi had only given her a rough outline and had not mentioned the important parts. But she still smiled happily. The fact that Zhang Yi hadn't let her go out and take risks meant that he still cared about her. For a woman, nothing was more important than that. "Zhang Yi, you must be carrying a heavy burden. And I can't help you at all. Sometimes, I really feel like I'm useless." Zhou Qir felt a hint of guilt in her heart. Zhang Yi glanced down at her and thought to himself, "I bought insurance not to get my money's worth, but so that I would have a safety net in case something happened one day. I hope I will never need your services as a doctor." Zhou Qir's face suddenly turned red, and she reached down with her right hand. "This is all I can do for you now, at least it can help you relax. Don't store up too much negative energy."